The Galactic Empire attacked Earth. Humanity issued an ultimate warning. The first explosion came without warning. Admiral Ho stood on the bridge of the flagship Resolute when the alarms began screaming. Red lights flashed across every screen. Officers shouted reports over each other, their voices mixing into chaos. "Orbital Station 7 is gone," someone called out. "Station 8 is under attack." Ho did not panic. He was 58 years old and had spent 40 years preparing for a day like this. He walked calmly to the main viewing screen and watched as bright flashes lit up the darkness of space. Each flash meant death. Each flash meant another station burning. "Show me the enemy," he said quietly. The screen changed. What he saw made his blood run cold, but his face showed nothing. Hundreds of ships filled the void around Earth. They were massive vessels, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their hulls were dark purple, covered in strange symbols that glowed with alien light. The Empire had finally come. Captain Park Bin rushed to his side. She was 34, young for her rank, but Ho had promoted her himself. She was the tactical officer he had ever known. Her eyes were wide as she studied the enemy fleet. "Sir, we count over 300 warships," she reported. "They destroyed stations 7, 8, and 12 in the first strike. We have lost contact with 12,000 people." 12,000 dead in minutes. Ho closed his eyes for just a moment. He allowed himself that small grief. Then he opened them again. "Pull all forces back to defensive positions around Earth," he ordered. "Do not engage, not yet." Park Bin looked surprised. "Sir, they are killing our people." "I know," Ho replied. "But we cannot win a direct fight against those numbers. We need time, we need to think." On the other side of space, Supreme Commander Al watched the attack from his command throne. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes that blinked in different patterns. He had conquered 37 worlds for the Empire. Earth would be number 38. "The humans are retreating," one of his officers reported with confusion. "They are not fighting back." Al made a sound that was his species' version of laughter. "Of course they are retreating. They are a primitive species from a single planet. They have no empire, no allies, no real fleet. They probably cannot believe what is happening to them." "Should we pursue?" the officer asked. "No, let them gather together. It will make the final strike easier." Al leaned back in his throne. "Send a message to Earth. Tell them to surrender immediately. Tell them that resistance will result in the complete destruction of their species." The message reached Earth 17 minutes later. It played on every screen on the planet. Billions of humans watched as the alien commander promised them death or slavery. In the emergency council chamber deep beneath the mountains of Korea, the leaders of Earth gathered. Presidents and generals sat around a long table. Scientists and advisors lined the walls. Fear filled the room like smoke. Ambassador Min stood at the head of the table. He was 45 years old, a diplomat who had spent his life solving problems with words instead of weapons. Now he faced the greatest problem humanity had ever known. "They want our surrender," one of the generals said. "We should consider it. We cannot defeat them." "If we surrender, we become slaves," another leader replied. "The Empire does not free its conquered worlds, ever." The arguing continued for an hour. Min listened to every voice. He heard the fear behind every word. Finally, he raised his hand for silence. "We will not surrender," he said, "but we will also not attack, not yet." "Then what do we do?" someone demanded. Min turned to Admiral Ho, who had joined the meeting through a video screen. The old admiral nodded slowly. "We give them a warning," Min said. "A formal warning. We tell them to leave our system within 72 hours. We tell them to pay for the lives they have taken. We tell them that if they refuse, they will face consequences they cannot imagine." Silence fell over the room. Then someone laughed bitterly. "A warning. They have 300 warships. We have maybe 40. What kind of warning could possibly matter to them? Min smiled, but it was not a happy smile. The kind of warning that humanity has been preparing for 200 years. The kind of warning that will change everything. 6 hours later, every ship in the fleet received the same transmission. Ambassador Min appeared on their screens, speaking calmly in the universal trade language. To the commanders of the Empire, he said, "You have attacked Earth without warning. You have killed 12,000 innocent people. You have demanded our surrender. We refuse." On his command throne, Al leaned forward with interest. He had never seen a conquered species act this way before. "You have 72 hours to withdraw from our solar system," Min continued. "You will pay reparations for every life you have taken. You will formally recognize Earth as a sovereign world, free from your empire forever. If you refuse these terms, you will face the full power of humanity. This is not a threat. This is a promise. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. For a long moment, no one on the flagship spoke. Then Al began to laugh. His officers joined him, their strange voices filling the bridge with alien sounds. "A warning," Al said between laughs. "The tiny species from the tiny planet gives us a warning. How wonderful, how amusing." "What should we do, Supreme Commander?" an officer asked. "Nothing," Al replied. "We wait for their silly deadline to pass. Then we burn their world to ash and take whatever is left. These humans are brave, I will admit, but bravery cannot stop 300 warships." He turned to look at Earth through the viewing screen. The blue and green planet hung in the darkness, beautiful and fragile. "Prepare the second wave," Al ordered. "When the 72 hours end, we will show these humans what happens to species that defy the Empire." Back on the Resolute, Admiral Ho stood alone in his quarters. He looked at a photograph on his desk. It showed his family, his wife, his children, all of them were on Earth. All of them were counting on him. 72 hours, he whispered to himself. "We have 72 hours to save everyone." He picked up his communication device and called Captain Park Bin. "Captain, meet me in the war room. We have work to do." The countdown had begun. The Galactic Empire attacked Earth. Humanity issued an ultimate warning. 48 hours had passed since the first attack. Earth waited, the fleet waited, the universe held its breath. Deep inside a mountain on the Korean peninsula, Dr. Shin had not slept in 2 days. She was 41 years old, and she had spent 15 of those years working on something that was never supposed to be used. Now, standing in the most secret laboratory on Earth, she prepared to change everything. "Run the final tests again," she told her team. "We need to be absolutely certain." The device in front of her looked simple. It was a metal cylinder no bigger than a person. Inside that cylinder was power beyond imagination. Inside that cylinder was the death of stars. On the Resolute, Admiral Ho received another report from his scouts. The fleet had not moved. They were waiting just as he had expected. They were confident. They believed they had already won. "Admiral," Captain Park Bin said, approaching with a tablet in her hands, "I have finished analyzing their fleet formation." "What did you find?" Park Bin showed him the display. Hundreds of enemy ships appeared as red dots arranged in perfect patterns. "Their formation is designed for overwhelming force," she explained. "They spread out to prevent escape and concentrate fire from all directions. It is very effective against normal enemies." "But," Ho asked, hearing the hope in her voice, "but it has a weakness. Their flagship sits at the center, protected by layers of other ships. If we could break through to the center, we could reach their commander directly. Without their leader, their fleet would be confused." Ho studied the formation carefully. Breaking through would require pilots willing to fly into certain death. "Yes," Park Bin agreed quietly, "it would." In the pilot quarters of the carrier ship Thunderbolt, Lieutenant Young sat alone. He was 29 years old and had flown more combat missions than anyone else in Earth's fleet. He was called the best pilot humanity had ever produced. Right now, he did not feel like the best anything. He looked at the photograph in his hands. His younger sister smiled back at him. She lived in a small city near the coast. She had a husband and a baby daughter. She had sent him a message yesterday, telling him she loved him, telling him she believed in him. The door opened. Another pilot, a woman named HFY, stepped inside. "They are asking for volunteers," she said, "for something called Operation. They would not give details, but everyone knows what it means." Young put the photograph away. "A suicide mission." "Probably. Are you going to volunteer?" He stood up and walked past her toward the door. "Of course I am. Someone has to protect everyone back home." As the hours passed, Ambassador Min prepared humanity's second message. This time, it would not be just words. This time, it would be a demonstration. "Are we ready?" he asked Admiral Ho through the communication screen. "The weapon is in position," the Admiral replied. "Dr. Shin confirms it will work as designed." "And you are certain this is the right choice? Once we show them what we can do, there is no going back." Ho was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with the weight of his decision. "They killed 12,000 of our people without hesitation. They laugh at our warnings. They plan to enslave or destroy our entire species. We must show them that we are not prey. We are not victims. We are humanity." At the 60-hour mark, every ship in the fleet received a new transmission. Ambassador Min appeared again, but this time his expression was different. There was no politeness. There was no diplomacy. There was only cold determination. "To Supreme Commander Al and the forces of the Empire," he said, "you have ignored our warning. You have remained in our system. You have continued your hostile positioning around our world. We asked you to leave. You refused." On the flagship, Al watched with amusement. "More words," he said to his officers. "These humans love their words." "Therefore," Min continued, "we will now demonstrate what awaits you if you do not withdraw. Watch carefully. What you are about to see will happen once as proof. The next time it will not be a demonstration." The transmission showed a view of space. In the distance, a small moon orbited a gas giant at the edge of the solar system. It was an abandoned human mining base, empty for decades. "That moon is approximately the size of one of your larger warships," Min explained. "In exactly 30 seconds, it will cease to exist." Al leaned forward, his 4 eyes narrowed with sudden interest. The seconds counted down. Then a small flash of light appeared near the moon. It was so tiny, so insignificant. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the moon cracked. Lines of blinding energy spread across its surface like lightning. The rock began to glow from within. In less than 3 seconds, the entire moon exploded into dust and radiation. Where it had been, there was nothing but empty space and expanding clouds of debris. Every sensor on every ship recorded the event. Officers looked at their commanders with fear in their eyes. Nothing in their technology could do what they had just witnessed. "That was a single weapon," Min said. "We have more, many more. You have 12 hours remaining. Leave our system or face destruction. There will be no further warnings." The transmission ended. In her laboratory, Dr. Shin watched the results with tears in her eyes. The weapon worked perfectly. Cascade technology, the ability to create chain reactions that could tear apart matter at the atomic level. Her life's work, her greatest achievement, her deepest shame. "It was never supposed to be used," she whispered to herself. "It was supposed to be a deterrent, just a deterrent." Admiral Ho contacted her moments later. "Doctor, I need to know. Can we really do what the ambassador suggested? Can we destroy their fleet with this technology?" Shin took a deep breath. "We can do more than destroy their fleet, Admiral. We can destroy their stars, their planets, their entire empire if we choose. Cascade technology does not just break things, it makes them break themselves, and once started it cannot be stopped. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. That is a terrible power. Yes, it is, and now the whole galaxy knows we have it. On the flagship, Supreme Commander Al sat alone in his quarters. For the first time in his long career of conquest, he felt something unfamiliar. It took him several minutes to identify the emotion. It was doubt. He contacted his Emperor through a secure channel and reported what he had seen. The Emperor listened without interruption. "What do you recommend?" the Emperor finally asked. Al thought carefully before answering. "I recommend we call their bluff. They have one weapon, maybe two. They cannot have many. We have 300 ships. We attack with everything, destroy their planet, and end this threat forever. And if you are wrong, if they have more weapons, then we die with honor, serving the Empire." The Emperor was silent for a long time. Then he gave his order. "Destroy them, leave nothing alive." Al smiled with all four of his eyes. It will be done. The 72-hour deadline passed at midnight Earth time. Admiral Ho stood on the bridge of the Resolute, surrounded by his officers. Every screen showed the fleet beginning to move. They were coming. He opened a channel that would broadcast to every human ship, every human station, every human on Earth. "This is Admiral Ho. The enemy has refused our terms. They are attacking, but we are not afraid. We have prepared for this moment. We have weapons they cannot imagine. We have courage they cannot understand. We are humanity, and today we fight." He closed the channel and turned to Captain Park Bin. "You were warned," he said simply. Then he gave the order that would begin the largest battle in human history. "All ships engage." The Galactic Empire attacked Earth. Humanity issued an ultimate warning. The battle began with fire and fury. Lieutenant Young pushed his fighter to maximum speed as he led his squadron through the chaos. Enemy weapons lit up the darkness around him. Ships exploded on all sides. The screams of dying pilots filled his communication channel. "Stay in formation," he shouted to his team. "Follow my lead. Do not stop no matter what happens." Operation had begun. 40 human fighters against 300 enemy warships. Their mission was simple and impossible: reach the enemy flagship and disable its communications. Without coordination, the fleet would fall into confusion. The first wave of interceptors came at them like a swarm of angry insects. Young twisted his fighter through their formation, firing constantly. 2 enemy ships exploded, then 3 more. "Lieutenant," one of his pilots called out, "I am hit. My engines are failing." "Eject and wait for rescue," Young ordered. "No, I can still fly. I can still fight." The damaged fighter continued forward, leaving a trail of smoke and flame. Its pilot, a young woman named So Young, knew she would not survive. She chose to make her death mean something. "I will clear a path," she said calmly. "Tell my family I love them." Before Young could respond, So Young accelerated directly into the largest cluster of enemy ships. Her fighter detonated in a massive explosion that took 7 vessels with it. The path was clear. The human squadron pushed forward. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Ho watched the battle unfold on dozens of screens. His fleet was smaller, weaker, and vastly outnumbered, but his people were fighting with everything they had. "Status report," he demanded. Captain Park Bin answered immediately. "We have lost 12 ships. The enemy has lost 47. Our fighters are making progress toward the flagship, but they are taking heavy casualties. And our hidden fleet?" "Standing by, waiting for your order." Ho nodded. For 200 years, humanity had secretly built a second fleet. Ships hidden in asteroids in the dark spaces between planets, in places no one would think to look. This fleet was smaller than the first, but its ships carried special weapons. Weapons that had never been tested in real combat. "Not yet," he said. We need to wait for the right moment. On the flagship, Supreme Commander Al observed the human resistance with growing frustration. These primitive creatures should have surrendered by now. They should have been begging for mercy. Instead, they fought like demons. "Why are their pilots so effective?" he demanded. "Our ships are superior. Our weapons are stronger. How are they destroying so many of our vessels?" One of his officers studied the combat data. His gray face turned even paler. "Supreme Commander, the human pilots are sustaining damage that should kill them. Injuries that would incapacitate any species in our empire. They are continuing to fight with broken bones, with internal bleeding, with oxygen deprivation. Their bodies should fail, but they keep flying." Al stared at the screen showing the human fighters. They moved differently than any enemy he had ever faced. They took risks that made no logical sense. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation. "What kind of species is this?" he whispered. Young felt the blood running down his face. Shrapnel had cut him during the last attack. His left arm was broken, hanging useless at his side. Every breath brought sharp pain from his damaged ribs. He kept flying. "Status," he called to his remaining pilots. Of the 40 who had started, only 11 remained. "We are close," Hayone reported. "The flagship is just ahead, but they have formed a defensive wall, 20 ships between us and the target." 20 ships, 11 fighters. The math was simple, they could not all make it. Young made his decision. "I will break through alone," he said. "The rest of you create a distraction, draw their fire away from me." "Lieutenant, that is suicide." "Maybe, but I have the best chance of reaching the target. This is what we trained for. This is what we volunteered for. No arguments." His squadron spread out, attacking the defensive wall from multiple angles. The ships turned to engage them, opening a small gap in their formation. Young flew through that gap like a bullet through paper. Warning lights covered his control panel. Enemy weapons tore into his ship. His shields failed. His hull breached. Cold vacuum began seeping into his cockpit. He reached the flagship. With his last strength, he activated his special weapon, an electromagnetic pulse designed to disable enemy systems. The pulse erupted from his dying ship and struck the flagship directly. Every light on the command vessel flickered and died. "Get me communications," Al screamed into the darkness. "Get me sensors, get me anything." His officers scrambled to restore power, but the human weapon had done its work. The flagship was blind and mute. On the Resolute, Captain Park Binge shouted with excitement. "Admiral, the enemy flagship is disabled. They have lost coordination. Their fleet is falling into confusion." Ho allowed himself a small smile. Lieutenant had succeeded. The brave pilot had given humanity a chance. "Is Young alive?" he asked. Park Bin checked her screens. "His ship is destroyed, but we are detecting a life pod. He ejected at the last moment. He is wounded but alive." "Good, send rescue teams." Ho straightened his uniform. "Now, reveal our hidden fleet. It is time to show them what humanity can really do." All across the solar system, ships that had been hidden for decades emerged from their hiding places. 50 vessels appeared from asteroid fields. 30 more rose from the surface of distant moons. 20 came out of the darkness beyond the outer planets. 100 human warships joined the battle. The fleet, already confused without their flagship's coordination, suddenly found themselves surrounded. Human ships attacked from every direction. "Supreme Commander," an officer shouted as emergency power finally restored the flagship systems. "Another human fleet has appeared. They are everywhere. We are surrounded." Al looked at the tactical display and felt that unfamiliar emotion again. Doubt had become fear. "Call for reinforcements," he ordered. "Contact the Empire. Tell them we need every available ship immediately." The message went out to the stars. The Empire heard the call and responded. From 100 worlds, warships began moving toward Earth. On the Resolute, Admiral Ho received the intelligence report. More enemies were coming, many more. "How many ships?" he asked. "Early estimates suggest over 3,000, Park Bin replied. "They will arrive within hours." 3,000 ships. Even with their hidden fleet, humanity had less than 200. The mathematics of war had not changed. Ambassador Min appeared on the communication screen. "Admiral, I am broadcasting our terms to the enemy fleet. I am offering them one last chance to surrender." "They will not accept," Ho said. "I know, but history must show that we tried. History must show that we gave them every opportunity to choose peace." The broadcast went out. Min spoke clearly and calmly, offering mercy to an enemy that had shown none. Al's response came minutes later. It was short. "Your species will be erased from existence. Your planet will be burned to ash. Your children will be food for our animals. There will be no surrender. There will be no mercy. There will be only death." Admiral Ho heard the message and nodded slowly. He had expected nothing else. "Dr. Shin," he said into his communicator, "prepare the cascade weapons, all of them." In her laboratory, Shin closed her eyes and whispered a prayer. Then she began the final preparations. The reinforcements were coming. 3,000 ships against 200, but those 200 carried weapons that could break stars. The real battle was about to begin. The Galactic Empire attacked Earth. Humanity issued an ultimate warning. The sky above Earth burned with the light of 3,000 enemy ships. They arrived in waves, pouring through the darkness like a river of death. The largest fleet the Empire had ever assembled now surrounded the small blue planet. Supreme Commander Al, his flagship repaired, watched with satisfaction. "Now," he said to his officers, "now they will understand their mistake." General Han Ra stood in her command center on Earth's surface, coordinating the evacuation of coastal cities. She was 52 years old, a soldier who had spent her entire life preparing to defend her home. Now that defense was being tested. "Move the civilians to the underground shelters," she ordered. "Priority goes to children and the elderly. Everyone else helps with the evacuation." Around the world, billions of humans fled to safety. They had built shelters for this day. They had prepared for the worst. But seeing the enemy fleet filling their sky made many people weep with fear. A young soldier approached General Han. "Ma'am, the enemy is charging weapons. They are preparing to bombard our surface." Han Ra looked up at the sky through the reinforced window. Thousands of points of light moved among the stars. Each point was a ship that wanted to destroy everything she loved. "How long until they fire?" "Minutes, maybe less." She picked up her communication device and contacted Admiral Ho. "Admiral, they are targeting our cities. We need to stop them." On the Resolute, Ho faced the hardest decision of his life. Dr. Shin waited for his order, her hand hovering over the activation controls. Ambassador Min watched through the video screen, his face heavy with sorrow. "If we use the cascade weapons against their fleet," Min said quietly, "millions will die. We will become killers on a scale humanity has never known." "If we do not use them," Park Bin replied, "billions will die. Our entire species will be destroyed." Ho closed his eyes. He thought about he thought about every child on Earth. He thought about all the generations yet to come. "We will not use them against the fleet," he said finally. "Not yet, not unless there is no other choice." "Then what do we do?" General Han demanded through the communication channel. "We show them." Ho opened his eyes. "We show the entire galaxy what we can do. We make them afraid. Dr. Shin, target the star at the edge of the system, the small red dwarf. It is uninhabited, nothing lives there." Shin understood immediately. "You want to kill a star." "I want to make a statement that every civilization in this galaxy will see and remember." At the edges of the solar system, observers from other alien civilizations watched the battle unfold. The Federation had sent a single ship to witness what they expected to be humanity's final moments. Observer, a being with silver skin and eyes that saw in spectrums humans could not imagine, recorded everything. They have assembled their full power, reported to his government. The humans cannot possibly survive. This will be the end of their species. As he spoke, something strange happened. A small object launched from one of the human ships. It flew away from the battle, away from Earth, toward the distant red dwarf star at the system's edge. "What is that?" wondered aloud. The object reached the star. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the star flickered. Adjusted his sensors, certain they were malfunctioning. What he was seeing was impossible. Stars did not simply die. Stars lived for billions of years. They were eternal, unchanging, beyond the power of any weapon. The red dwarf flickered again. Its light began to pulse erratically. Cracks of darkness appeared on its surface, spreading like wounds. Energy erupted from its core in massive explosions that would have destroyed anything nearby. In less than 2 minutes, the star collapsed. It folded in on itself, crushed by forces that all known physics. Where there had been a ball of fire that had burned for billions of years, there was now only darkness and debris. Every sensor in the galaxy recorded the event. Every civilization with eyes turned to look. Every being capable of understanding what they had witnessed felt the same thing. Fear. On the flagship, Supreme Commander Al watched the star die. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly, unable to process what he was seeing. "That is impossible," he whispered. "No weapon can do that. No weapon has ever done that." "Supreme Commander," an officer said, his voice trembling. "We are receiving a transmission from the human ship." "Put it on screen." Ambassador Min appeared. Behind him, the bridge of the Resolute was filled with determined faces. "Supreme Commander Al," Min said, "what you just witnessed was not a trick. It was not an illusion. We have the power to kill stars. We have many weapons capable of this. Your fleet, no matter how large, cannot protect you from this power." Al said nothing. He could not find words. "We do not want to use this power against you," Min continued. "We do not want to destroy your ships, your worlds, your species. We want only to be left alone. We want only peace. But if you force us to defend ourselves, we will use everything we have. Your empire will burn. Your civilization will end. Your children will never be born." The ambassador leaned closer to the camera. His eyes were hard as stone. "That was your final warning. Withdraw now or face extinction." The transmission ended. On the flagship, officers looked at their commander. They waited for orders. They waited for leadership. They waited for someone to tell them what to do. Al sat frozen on his throne. For the first time in his life, he did not know how to fight. He did not know how to win. He only knew that he was facing something that could destroy everything he served. "Supreme Commander," an officer finally said, "your orders." Al looked at the darkness where a star had been. He looked at the small blue planet that these humans called home. He looked at his fleet of 3,000 ships. Then he looked at the faces of his officers. They were afraid. They had seen the impossible. They wanted to live. He made his decision. "Prepare planet-killing weapons," he ordered. "Target Earth. If we are going to die, we will take them with us." The order spread through the fleet. Massive weapons began charging. They would turn Earth's surface into molten glass. Every human, every animal, every plant would be burned to ash. General Han Ra received the warning. "Admiral, they are charging extinction-level weapons. They are going to destroy our planet." Ho turned to Dr. Shin. The scientist looked at him with tears in her eyes. "I never wanted this," she said. "I know," he replied gently. "None of us wanted this, but we have no choice." He gave the final authorization. A single Cascade missile launched from the Resolute. But it did not fly toward the fleet. It flew past them, toward empty space beyond the solar system. "What are you doing?" Park Bin asked in confusion. "Watch," Ho said. The missile stopped in empty space. Then it detonated, and the fabric of space itself began to tear. Observer watched in horror as a hole opened in reality. Through that hole, something emerged, energy unlike anything he had ever seen, power beyond measurement, a wound in the universe that spread outward in all directions. "They did not just kill a star," whispered into his recorder. "They broke space itself. They have weapons that can destroy reality." Every ship in the fleet lost power. The tear in space disrupted every system, every weapon, every engine. 3,000 warships became 3,000 helpless metal boxes floating in the void. Ambassador Min broadcast one final message. "Your weapons are disabled. Your fleet is helpless. We could destroy you all with a single command, but we choose mercy. Surrender now and you will live. Continue to threaten us and you will die. The choice is yours." On the crippled flagship, Supreme Commander Al looked at his useless weapons and his dead controls. He looked at his frightened officers and his powerless fleet. He had conquered 37 worlds. He had never lost a battle. Until now. "Surrender," he said quietly. "Send the signal, we surrender." The galaxy would never forget this day. The day that tiny humanity brought the mighty empire to its knees. The Galactic Empire attacked Earth. Humanity issued an ultimate warning. 3 days had passed since the surrender. The galaxy had changed forever. Ambassador Min stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the fleet depart. 3,000 ships that had come to destroy humanity now limped away in defeat. Their weapons were disabled, their pride was broken, and their empire was crumbling. "The last of them have crossed the system boundary," Captain Park Bin reported. "They are gone." Admiral Ho nodded slowly. He looked older than he had 3 days ago. The weight of command had taken something from him. "And what news from the—" "Their emperor has been overthrown. His own people turned against him when they learned what happened here. They are afraid, Admiral, afraid of what we might do to them." Ho closed his eyes. Fear. That was what they had created. Humanity had made itself the most feared species in the galaxy. "I did not want this," he said quietly. "I did not want to be feared." Min placed a hand on the old admiral's shoulder. "We did what we had to do. We survived. Now we must decide what kind of species we want to be." In the days that followed, representatives from dozens of alien civilizations came to Earth. They came with questions, with concerns, with barely hidden terror in their eyes. They wanted to know if humanity planned to use its power to conquer them. Min met them all in a great hall built specifically for this moment. He spoke calmly and clearly, using simple words that could not be misunderstood. "Humanity does not want an empire," he told them. "We did not develop our weapons to conquer. We developed them to survive. For 200 years, we watched the empire devour world after world. We knew they would come for us eventually. We prepared." Observer of the Federation raised a thin silver hand. "But now you have the power to do anything you want. You could rule the entire galaxy. Why would you choose not to?" Min smiled sadly. "Because ruling through fear is not truly ruling. It is only delaying the moment when the fearful rise up against you. The Empire learned this lesson. We do not want to repeat their mistake." He walked to a large window that showed the stars beyond. Countless worlds, countless species, countless possibilities. "We propose something new," Min said. "Not an empire where one species dominates all others. A true federation. A partnership of equals where every world has a voice, where conflicts are resolved through discussion instead of destruction, where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them." The alien representatives looked at each other. Such an idea seemed impossible. In their long histories, the strong had always consumed the weak. That was the way of the universe. "Why should we trust you?" one of them asked. "You have weapons that can kill stars. You could destroy us all." Min nodded. "You are right. You have no reason to trust us except our actions, so we will prove ourselves through action. We will help rebuild the worlds damaged by the Empire. We will share our technology, not our weapons, but our medicine, our farming methods, our ways of building a better life. We will ask nothing in return except friendship." In a medical bay on Earth, Lieutenant Young opened his eyes. Machines beeped steadily around him. Bandages covered much of his body, but he was alive. Admiral Ho sat beside his bed. "You did something impossible," the Admiral said. "You gave us the chance we needed. You are a hero." Young tried to smile, but it hurt too much. "I am just a pilot who got lucky." "No," Ho shook his head firmly. "Luck had nothing to do with it. You chose to sacrifice yourself for others. That is the definition of a hero." They sat in silence for a while. Outside the window, the sun was setting, painting the sky in colors of orange and gold. "What happens now?" Young asked. "Now we build something better. Captain Park, I mean Admiral Park, has been given command of Earth's new defense fleet. She will make sure no one ever threatens our home again." "And you?" Ho stood slowly, his old bones creaking. "I am retiring. I have done my duty. Now it is time for younger people to lead." He walked to the door, then stopped and looked back. "Rest well, Lieutenant. The hard part is over. The future belongs to people like you now." Months passed, then years. The Galactic Federation that Ambassador Min proposed slowly became reality. World after world joined, choosing partnership over isolation. Species that had been enemies for centuries learned to work together. Dr. Shin locked away the Cascade technology in the deepest vault on Earth. She hoped it would never be used again. She hoped the demonstration they had given would be enough to keep peace for generations. What if someone finds a way to build their own Cascade weapons? Her assistant asked one day. Shin thought about this question. Then we must hope that they are wise enough to use such power carefully, or not use it at all. 10 years after the war, a monument was built on Earth's moon. It was a simple structure, a wall of white stone with names carved into it. 12,000 names, one for every person who died in the attack. Ambassador Min, now elderly and slow, visited the monument with his granddaughter. She was 7 years old, born into a galaxy that knew peace because of what her grandfather had helped create. "Why did they attack us?" she asked, looking at all the names. "Because they were afraid," Min replied. "They saw something different and wanted to destroy it before it could threaten them." "That is stupid." He laughed softly. "Yes, it was stupid, but fear makes people do stupid things." The little girl was quiet for a moment. Then she asked another question. "Grandfather, you showed them we could destroy them. Why did you not just destroy them? Would that not have been easier?" Min knelt down so he could look into his granddaughter's eyes. This was the question he had been waiting for, the question that everything depended on. "Because power without mercy is not strength," he said carefully. "It is fear, and fear builds nothing that lasts. When you have the power to destroy your enemies, that is the moment you must ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be?" "What kind of person do you want to be?" she asked. He smiled and touched her cheek gently. "The kind who builds instead of destroys, the kind who protects instead of conquers, the kind who gives mercy to those who deserve punishment. That is the hardest thing to do when you have power, but it is the most important thing." Years later, that little girl would grow up to become the first leader of the Galactic Federation. She would guide hundreds of worlds toward peace and prosperity. She would face challenges that seemed impossible and overcome them with wisdom and compassion. And whenever she faced a difficult decision, she would remember her grandfather's words at the monument. She would remember the 12,000 names carved in white stone. She would remember what humanity had learned on the day they brought an empire to its knees. Power without mercy is not strength. Fear builds nothing that lasts, and the true measure of a species is not what it can destroy, but what it chooses to create. Humanity had passed that test. The galaxy would never forget.